Hello, everybody, and welcome to Virtual Bourbon. My name is Steve Akley. I own a company called the ABV Network, and we do these virtual bourbon events. And this is our signature virtual bourbon event. It's called our Flagship Whiskey, and we do these 2 times in a month, and then we do them every other month. So we feature 8 distilleries in the months where we do these things, and we have a really great lineup tonight. We got 4 distilleries represented, and they are going to tell us their story. We'll meet the people behind the brands, and of course, we'll taste their flagship whiskey, which is a pretty darn cool thing to do. And by the end of this, of course, we will have a Q&A session. So as always, we like for this to be a very participative event. We want you guys involved, asking questions and things like that. During the actual thing itself, because it's a big group, it's best if we have the mics off other than for our presenters. But if you have any questions, put them out in the chat and I will jump in and ask those at an appropriate time. I don't always ask them immediately, but I'll make sure I get to them. And if not, we will certainly get to time. We'll leave time at the very end for Q&A when you can open up your microphones and ask any questions that you've got yourself to any of our distillery representatives or to all of them if it makes sense to do so. With that, we're going to get started here. I'm going to go ahead and go round robin and introduce all 4 of our distilleries and the representatives of those brands. And we'll go in the order that they're on the placemat, which is the order that we will be drinking tonight. So we'll just follow suit with how the placemat was set up. So we will introduce them. Again, just a quick hello to them. We like to do that at the top so they're not just waiting around. We like to get that off the board right away. And then we'll start. And again, we'll interview in this particular order. So first up is Chrissy Svetz from Samuel Burton Distillery, Labadie, Missouri. So kind of the greater St. Louis area. She's going to be bringing us a bourbon tonight, and she is the co-owner and distiller for Samuel Burton. So, hey, Chrissy, how you doing?
Hello, everybody. How's it going?
Good, good. So this is going to be fun. We're going to get to know a little bit more about you. And this is one of the cool things about this series. I mean, you look at what we've got going on tonight. Chrissy, we'll talk about your distillery, but it's, we've got everything on these events from yours is, obviously very small, all the way to we got our next guest is going to be with Jim Beam, the biggest in the world. So we cover the gamut with these things, which is kind of cool. Side by side in the exact same meeting. Very, very cool thing. So we'll talk to you in just a little bit. Okay, Chrissy?
Certainly.
All right, next up is my friend, American Whiskey Ambassador from Beam Suntory. She's going to be representing Jim Beam tonight out of Clermont, Kentucky, Beth Burrows. Hey, Beth, how you doing?
I'm so well. How are you?
I'm doing well as well. So I always enjoy talking to you. You always bring some great stories and stuff like that. You do an amazing job of learning company history, and you're going to be sharing with us some great whiskey tonight. So that's always fun, too.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here.
Absolutely. We'll talk to you in just a minute, okay?
Yes, sir.
All right. Next up, from Blaum Brothers Distilling Company out of Galena, Illinois, the co-founders of that, brothers Mike and Matt Blaum. How are you guys doing?
Doing well.
Wonderful.
Good.
How are you guys doing?
Good. This is going to be great. So yeah, the weather is great outside. Get to talk to you guys. It's fun. Sounds like you guys got it's always interesting being able to do something with your sibling, which sounds very cool. I even saw, on your website, you guys said that really the only way you get along totally is to drink a little bit. So it makes sense to start a distillery. Yeah. Right.
That's it.
Yeah.
The only way.
Right. So we'll get your story and find out all the background. Should be fun. Can't wait to talk to you guys. We'll do that in just a few. And last but not least is my buddy here from, again, greater St. Louis area, Marthasville, Missouri. He is the founder and head distiller of Nobleton's Distilling House, Demetrius Kane. Hey, Demetrius, how you doing, man?
Good. How you doing, Steve?
Good. Absolutely. So yeah, I've known this guy for a while. He contacted me right when he had his first product launch, which was interesting. It wasn't bourbon or anything like that, but I guess you knew I was from St. Louis. You listened to some of our podcasts and stuff like that, and you invited me to an event where you're releasing a rum, which again, you guys did, a couple of years where you're just putting rums out and stuff like that. And it's a personal passion for you. And you've got a great little story for that. We'll probably touch on that, even though we're talking whiskey tonight. I'd like to share some of that because like I said, I recently interviewed you and got a lot more in depth about that. So fun stuff, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And you've got a special one for us. It's a batch number 1 of your whiskey. So this is crazy. You've been in business for how long now?
We celebrate our 5th year in April.
Yeah, man, that's a heck of a ride. Anybody holding out, not sourcing or selling any whiskey, being in the whiskey business and hanging out for almost 5 years. So fun stuff. We'll get to your story and all the great twists and turns that involves when we get to you. All right, buddy.
Sounds good.
Talk to you very soon. All right. First up, again, from Samuel Burton Distillery out in Labadie, Missouri, Chrissy Svetz. Hey, Chrissy, how you doing? Oh, you're on mute. You are on mute.
We'll try this again. I'm good. How's everybody else?
I think everyone's good. Yeah. This, anytime you're drinking whiskey, that's one of the great things about this business is you get people in a good mood. So people are in a great mood, for these things. So that's a good thing. So we talked a little bit about, you've got a small distillery in a small town, Labadie. I mean, how many people are in Labadie, Missouri?
I want to say maybe I'm pushing 800.
800. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. My high school was like 3 times that size, which is, crazy, right?
It is.
Yeah.
It
But,
goes very well.
Yeah, but you are across the street from a kind of a very famous restaurant. So, you
Yes.
got kind of a tourist draw to the town anyway. When the company was started, you weren't, an owner from the beginning. This is something that you
No.
transitioned into. But again, the idea, I think, was to put it across from this place where a lot of people from the area come and visit and enjoy a good meal. And hey, here's something else you can do while you're here, right?
It was a definite form of revenue. Let's put it like that. I mean, we knew that being centrally located to that specific restaurant, there would be traffic.
Right.
And that doesn't mean that they're going to like our product, but 9 out of 10 times somebody will leave with something,
Right.
if not a tasting.
Yeah, cool stuff. So tell us a little bit about what it's like visiting your distillery. So again, just to kind of frame it out, what's happening there.
So, like I said, we are very small. It can maybe seat comfortably, I want to say, maybe 10 to 12 people up front.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't stop us though. I mean, I multitask, so I do tastings. I'll put a group there, put a group there. First thing I like to do is if they're interested, is show them the still and kind of the back, the guts of the building. A lot of people are interested in that. So that's the first thing I want to do is they want to see the still,
Right.
which is a beautiful still. So I take them back there and I give them somewhat of a brief history of how we began, from how we began until me, where I began into the whole mix. So then I'll take them back out. We do a tasting. I'm a people person, so I usually keep. I've had customers in here for 2-3 hours,
Right.
answering whatever kind of questions they can ask, and what I'm willing to answer or know enough to answer.
Yeah. So how did you find this business? So again, you weren't part of the startup of this thing. So how do you ultimately come to work for Samuel Burton? And then how do you work your way into the distilling? And then, like I said, as a co-owner at this point.
So I was friends with the founder, who is Stephen Carter. He is a retired engineer. At this point in my life, I was bartending and at a family restaurant. And I got to know a lot of my regulars very well. I knew that wasn't something that I always wanted to do, but I always had fun making drinks. I mean, that was something that I really enjoyed doing. I met Steve. He said he was going to retire from engineering, and he was going to start up a distillery to pay homage to his grandfather, who was a moonshiner in Kentucky, Tennessee, and Illinois.
Okay.
So, it almost turned into a joke where I said, well, okay, I'll tell you what, you find a place, I will work for you. And he did. Steve is a man of his words. And so I left. I started out in sales, which I enjoy. Like I said, I'm a people person, but I didn't think, I'm glad I had the experience in it. It wasn't for me. I'm more of I want to get in there and make stuff.
Right.
And around that time, we really, business I mean, we started blossoming, let's put it like that, in a kind way. It literally blew up.
Mhm.
And Steve needed a second distiller. We tiptoed around it for a little bit, and I asked him, I said, well, would you be interested in training me? And it just turned into that. He was like, well, wow, yeah, sure. So we went through all the technicalities of it, and I struggle with math, I'm going to be honest. So I thought, well, I could never do this. I could never do this because I don't have that, that background in chemistry or anything like that. But I've learned that it's just taste,
Mhm.
talent and taste. And I apprenticed under him for about 2.5 years still. And I mean, not really, I mean, he's moved now, but I would say close to about 3 years.
Right.
And I learned more from that man than any classes I could have ever taken. We've been through every whoopsie, every uh-oh that could have happened. So
Yeah.
I agree. Experience is your best teacher.
Okay. This group, of course, was what's different than most that, events and things like that you go to if you're presenting at a luncheon or something like that. These people are really, really, really into bourbon. And, that's kind of goes across the lines with anything that we do at the ABV Network. So you're talking about people that are so into bourbon. They want to know, history. They want to know production, how it's made. They want to get into the nitty gritty of yeast and, all kinds of crazy stuff.
Absolutely.
They love all that kind of cool stuff. So, it's just different than most. So, tell us a little bit about, the still that you guys run there. You were talking about how neat it is. So tell us about that still.
So we have a 4-column hybrid bubbler,
Okay.
all copper still, from Confederate Stills of Alabama, 150-gallon tank. That's what leads people into that room, just
Mhm.
because aesthetically it is so gorgeous.
Right.
As for being just a very classic made American still. I'm stumbling on my words here.
But yeah, so production wise, you're working with this hybrid still kind of cool thing, and you learn to do that with Steve, like I said, kind of over time, just kind of watching what he does and that, right? So just kind of hands on. Did you do anything else? Did you go to any other distilleries or anything like that?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh,
So
I
you
poured,
travel around.
yes.
Yeah.
And then I joined committees, of course, we're part of the Missouri Craft Distillers Guild, and, they offered small classes and things like that. But I'm just one of those where, I do the taste test during the distillation process. I'm a taster,
Right.
and so I just have a keen sense to when it starts to go nasty.
Right.
And Steve never had that. So when we would work together, he's like, I think it's okay. I'm like, no, it's not. We're pulling it. We're going to pull it. So I think that, certain palates are capable of picking up flavor like that. Also knowing other things about it, that I've learned, with fermentation and temperatures and things like that, which was something I never knew before.
Yeah.
Even your mash build, things like that all change the flavor. I was never, to be honest with you, I was never really a whiskey drinker. I was a wine and beer person, never vodka or anything like that, but I have such a deep appreciation for whiskeys now, because just the complexity and all the flavors and it's just a whole world that I find it very intriguing.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about the whiskey that we're going to be drinking. That's what we're going to do next year, but just kind of lead up to it. Tell us about this. This is your flagship whiskey. So tell us what we're going to be expecting here.
So our bourbon is 75% Missouri corn,
Okay.
21% rye, and 4% malted barley.
Okay.
We've aged it now. It's going to be a little over 4.5 years.
Right.
As for the color, I like the medium amber color of it. I should have poured my own, and I didn't. I didn't partake in my own. The reason why we had a higher rye to that was the complexity of it. I am not a huge corn fan. I like to add different notes to it. I like dimension.
Mm-hmm.
So along comes the rye and then the malted barley, and you pick up a lot of, I want to say mid palate, you're going to pick up some vanilla, some maple notes to it.
Okay.
As for the finish, I personally think it has a longer finish, to me, it's a softer finish.
Okay.
With a hint of smoke, personally.
Okay.
But it's, once again, everybody's palate is different. So I have tasted stuff before where, I tasted apricots in something and there was nothing in there.
Right. That's the beauty of this stuff, right?
The
Stuff's
just
not in there, but somehow, some way, it magically finds its way in there, right? Yeah.
It just keeps getting better. And then the more you learn, the more you can play around with it.
Yeah.
And it's like that. I'm not a chemist. I know how to cook an egg. I can't tell you what happens to the proteins in the egg while I'm cooking it, but I know it's a damn good egg when I'm done.
Right.
So
Yes. A question came in from the audience. How old, you talked about that, right? This is a little bit over 5 years old, 5.5, something
a
like
little
that.
over 4. We're going to be reaching the 5-year mark probably, I want to say, in about 5 months.
Okay. So this is a little bit over 4 years old then. And what size barrel is the question too? Again,
Your standard barrel, 53 barrel.
53 barrel. Okay, very cool. It's starting to get some nosing notes. So this is fun. So you get to sit back and you get to everybody that's part of this. So we're talking nosing notes first. We always like to start with that. So vanilla crisp, vanilla crisp linen, and allspice. Tim said, I like this one, honey butter and some tobacco on the nose. I definitely like the honey butter because I got that. I also got kind of a little bit of a lemon zest too. I don't know if you guys are getting that. I haven't seen that besides anybody but me. Buttery caramel, hint of cherry, graham cracker, floral and vanilla, raw bread dough, herb and mint, buttered raisin bread, butterscotch. This is good.
I've got a lot of butterscotch.
When you get a lot of notes, I think that's always a good thing, right? Because that's what good American bourbon is supposed to be. A lot of different butterscotch and lemon. See, there you go. Thank you, Waltz. They're picking up that lemon zest.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's give this thing a taste. Let's see what we got. Let's taste and talk about this. Woohoo! That is nice, Chrissy. That it's sweet up front and fruity and almost like we should be having this on pie day, kind of almost as sweet like a pie. And then it does finish a little spicy though. And it warms up nicely. Like you said, I feels like it's because this comes in at 90 proof, but the proof feels like it drinks up a little bit, which is cool. I would have guessed more like 100 proof. So that's kind of cool.
And we've gotten that. And that was something that we just didn't, if we kept it at 90, there's still some heat and complexity. 80, it's going to be diluted. Yeah. Anything over 100 to me, you're probably going to want to dilute it with ice. So we just like to stick to the 90, and it just seems what it works for us. And consistency is always our motto.
Yeah. It's kind of a nice, just long finish. It kind of just sticks with you, kind of warms you up like the hug that we talk about when you're drinking good whiskey, and it just kind of stays there. Just kind of doesn't heat up an overwhelming amount, but it just that warm glow kind of just sticks with you. lemon meringue from the Ewalds there. More from Jason here. Light sweet, grows the heat and spice, bright citrus flavors, a touch of butter crust. Yep. Honey, slight pepper, some caramel, and orange from Terry F. So really good stuff there, Chrissy.
Thank you.
I think you're onto something. I like what you guys are doing, and that's impressive. Very good job. We appreciate you being here. Please stick around, and we'll keep you at the end for Q&A. Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
Absolutely. Next up is my friend from Jim Beam, Clermont, Kentucky, American Whiskey Ambassador, Beth Burrows. Beth, how you doing?
I'm so well, even better now that I got to sip a little whiskey. It feels great.
Heck
I
yeah.
was gonna say we always talk about the hug, and this one that we just went through, I had a good hug for this because I like to personify it. You know how I like to like come up with random actual hugs. So this is like hugging grandpa at the end of like the evening when he's sitting in his recliner smoking a little bit of a tobacco pipe. That's what it feels like to me.
You
And
you know you got to
most
do this for every
genuine-
one of these. You can't just do this for Chrissy.
I will.
Every one we're going to touch back with you, and you're going to tell us what the hug is like.
Or the group has to. Like, I mean, y'all jump in too. It's a super fun way to talk about the hug.
It is. So yeah, you bring so much to these things. So we just need to have you on every time we do one of these. And Beam's got a big enough portfolio between all you got going on at the Beam Suntory companies. We could probably bring you on every one of these. So that would be kind of cool.
I'm here for it.
Yeah,
I get from like hotel rooms and airports, but
yeah. Are you home now? Because I know you travel a lot for your job. You're all over the place.
I am, but I'm home. Yeah. So this is actually my office, and it's just like a mess of a calendar back there. So that's why it's all blurry. But and like a really bad caricature that I posted because I was trying to like hide some notes that I have up on the board. Anyway, instead of putting you all through that, it's just a blur, and my hat goes a little fuzzy sometimes. But that's where we are.
Yeah. You got to tell us about the hat. The hat's the signature look, right? So yes.
It became a thing. I think with 2020, I was doing a thing called Sunday Port Sessions on Instagram. And it was just fun to have a different hat every week when I would post on Sundays. And, 2 weeks to flatten the curve turned into 26 sessions of, speaking to my friends and talking about different avenues of the business and how they are involved. And it just turned into something really cool. But then the hats became a thing. And the last time that I spoke with you and we had a group of people, they said they came to one of my events and I wasn't wearing a hat, and they were highly disappointed.
I demanded they get their money back. I demanded they get their money back. So yeah.
I took it to heart, and now it's a staple always.
Okay.
Have to have.
Okay. That's good. That's good. So tell us a little bit about your job, because we always like to learn again about the people that we're talking about. So in this instance, you're not the distiller, but you have a very cool job. So tell us about what you do when you're doing all this traveling that you just talked about.
For sure. So I kind of shorten it to I travel and spread the good word. And I get to do that for the James B. Beam Distilling Company. So that can look like going into other places, throwing events, doing educations, doing tastings, just really chatting with people like we are right now, about what we do and why I love my job and why I love the folks that I work for and what the 227 years of Beam family history has looked like. So, but I am close to Clermont. So my house door to door to the distillery is about 15 minutes at this point. So I can be down there real quick. And so I work down there in the capacity of, forward facing to consumers and trade folks, and just try to spread the love of how much I love my distillery to all the folks who want to listen.
But you have a really cool gig. Well, like when you're in town, I mean, you're working with people like Fred and Fredbino and stuff like that. So you get the opportunity to spend some time with the people that we always enjoy, going to events and things like that. So what is it like working with like those two, for instance?
I'm super lucky. I mean, I will put it on Front Street there. I'm so lucky that I have had the opportunity, not just with the Fred and Freddie and some of the other folks that work at James B. Beam, but also just being in this business for quite some time. I worked in bars and restaurants prior to this. So I've been in the whiskey game for going on about 10 years at this point. Even though it hasn't been in this capacity, I hit 6 years with this company in July, but just that opportunity to ask all the questions in a safe space for them to answer literally anything that they're willing to answer. That's a common answer from distillers that they're willing to put out there. But just getting to understand how the behind the scenes works, how their brains are wrapping around this push of the bourbon boom and what we're seeing in American whiskey trends, and how we are going to pay homage to our history, but also push that envelope of what it looks like in the future, which is what I have in my glass. which is
Yeah.
a great segue talking about Legion.
Yes. Yes. We need to talk about that. I've got one more question though, because
Oh,
I
I'm
think
here.
I think it's important. Because as I talked about with Chrissy, that this is a group that travels, and probably most of them have been to the distillery in Clermont, Kentucky. But there's been an overhaul recently. Tell us a little bit about how the experience has changed before we talk about Legion, and then we'll get into the whiskey and tasting and all that good stuff.
For sure. So, I mean, we did about 5 years of phased construction in 18 months during, the shutdown time when the world kind of shut down and stopped for a bit. We decided that we were going to do this construction and just get this facility to this next level of what we were hoping to do. So a couple of years ago, we broke ground on the Fredbino Distillery. And that was a really awesome experience to see from the groundbreaking and surprising Fred with the fact that his name was going to be on that building. Freddie did the honor of standing on stage and really surprising him. Fred is not flabbergasted often. That was a moment where he was definitely, not prepared. But it was such a, he was a lot like his shoulders are just, it was the cutest thing ever. Because he was so taken aback by it. And as we talked about what it looked like to, pay homage to everybody who has done something in our Beam family history, we've got, the Booker No plant in Boston, Kentucky, just about 10 miles down the road from the Clermont facility. You see Jim Beam as the name on the door, and you see just kind of how each one of them has put their footprint on, that journey that we've been on as our whiskey journey for Beam. But to see Fred, have that opportunity to have this building named after him, where it is a smaller distillation space. So Freddie is really going to be the one that's spearheading everything that's happening there. It's a smaller still, but it's the exact same still that we have in our big house, even down to levers that we don't know what they do. They just happen to be there. And so when Vendome created the second still, they're like, we don't know what this does. And they were like, it doesn't matter, put it on there, because when we find out, because Booker likes to tinker. So there's like aftermarket, situations that are happening there. Yeah. So Booker was, he was definitely somebody pushing the envelope in the 80s and 90s of what we know as bourbon and American whiskey, with creating small batch and, everything that he gave.
So it's like no one uses this right now on the big still, but put it on the small version of it because it's part of it. Yeah. Okay. That's cool.
You never know.
Yeah.
And with Freddie following in the footsteps of his dad and of course his granddad, we know that he's nicknamed Little Book because he's very much like his grandfather, and having that just mental image of where he sees the business going in the future, and being able to carry that on at the Fredbino Distillery piece of the Clermont facility. And so, the tour itself is different. You're going to walk into the welcome center, and it's going to look very different. It's had a rehaul on the inside. It's a different color on the outside. It's now referred to as the American Outpost, which is actually a throwback to the original name of what that facility was on campus. And then you're going to go through a really awesome immersive tour and see why we have one of the hardest working stills, in America, and what we're doing to just add to that education piece of the experience. The general bourbon consumer, someone that's on a tour now, is a lot more educated than they were 5-10 years ago. And so updating and making sure that what we're talking to everyone about is going to be interesting and intriguing, and really scratching that I need to nerd out itch without going too far unless they want us to. But having that base layer really be a bit more of a hands-on immersive experience where you get to see a lot more and understand a lot more about the process from grain to glass. And so you have that opportunity at the James Beam Distilling Company now.
Nice. So tell us about Legion. Again, as you kind of hinted there, kind of future of the company. I mean, kind of a cutting edge product, really. So tell us about it.
It's pushing the envelope, right, of what we look at when we talk about, a true collaboration between Beam and Suntory. We've been a joint company for a few years now. And because of that, having just the expertise of the folks who are over at Suntory in Japan, and the expertise of all the folks that we have here in the US, working in our American whiskey division. And, Fred No being a 7th generation master distiller for the Beam family, and Shinji Fukuyo, who we have in Japan as a 5th ever chief blender of Suntory, right? So like these expansive palates, these really amazing folks who know their craft, and trying to see what they can do when they put their heads together, and how they can kind of, again, push that envelope and see what we do. Finishing's not new. It's not something that we're on the cutting edge of. People have been finishing whiskey for quite some time, but just the the proportions of and the creation of Legion in and of itself it's big for us because it is taking that next step and seeing how we can do something maybe a little bit different, or maybe something very special and unique because we have, you know, the two entities across Beam Suntory.
Yeah. Yeah. So as we get ready to do this, and folks, if you haven't already poured yours, please pour your Legion, and we'll start talking about nosing as Beth tells us a little bit more what we should be expecting as we're getting ready to taste this whiskey.
So when we think about Legion, you know, it is an American whiskey first, right? It is a Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey. What you're looking at as far as the base liquid goes is about 5 years old. And then you have the two finishes. So it is 3 liquid streams that are mingled together to create the final product that you have in your glass. And, you know, with that 5-year-old Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey, it's what we've been doing for a long time at Beam, right? We've definitely got that down pat. So you're going to get a lot of those notes that you would typically expect to get from your bourbon. However, you have those two finishes, one being in the red wine casks, one being in the sherry casks using Oloroso sherry. They're going to be about 4 years old to start, and then they age in the secondary cask for 1 to 2 summers based off of Fukuyi-san's palate and what he feels is, you know, the most appropriate for what we're looking for as our Legion product. And because of that, you know, it is open in certain parts, 1 to 2 summers, right? So it's going up to his palate. It is red wine casks, not a specific red wine. We don't know if there's going to be a bad crop one year. We don't know, you know, if we're going to have availability of barrels for, you know, a specific, very, you know, this is the red wine that we use. And so that it is a bit open-ended for Fukuyi-san to impart his blending and, you know, his true passion and what he does in being the master, you know, blender over there at Suntory. So
yeah, getting a couple nosing notes coming in, so folks feel free to put those out in the chat section. But I see vanilla, salted peanuts. Yeah, I get that too. Grape
Jimmy
preservative.
Eastern.
Yeah. Dark berries, caramel, vanilla, baking spices. I'm getting kind of like a buttery light brown sugar. I mean, on the nose. Buttery.
I get like a creme brulee. Yeah, like almost like a brown sugar creme brulee. Yeah.
Yeah. Homemade peanut butter and jelly on toast, specifically on toast.
I've heard this from a few folks. And like people are very specific about their jams and jellies. It gets real heated.
Yes. Yeah. Definitely wine and cherry undertones, confectioner's sugar, brandied cherry, and toasted walnuts. So again, getting a lot of great nosing notes here, and diverse too, which you gotta love. I think that's important to it's not a one note thing, and that's why some of the other whiskey categories, again, I respect other categories that other countries make with their whiskey, but I think this is why stuff like this, you see why I think bourbon's the best. Brown butter and almonds, Chrissy. All right, good stuff. Let's give this thing a taste and see what we got here on the palate. So let's see, folks.
Yeah, jump in that Kentucky chew.
Oh yeah. So
Delicious.
yeah, that is great. So I mean, it's definitely got that creme brulee on the taste. You know, I'm getting that sort of taste. I'm getting the wine finish too, though. It pulls definitely some of the sweetness and
Dark
like
berries for sure.
The berries for sure.
It is a little astringent, so it is just a little bit palate drying. But that finish is definitely apparent. Like it hangs for a minute. But for me, I mean, I think it hangs for a lot of people in different ways. I mean, it travels directly down the center of my tongue and then kind of hangs in my chest a bit. And I'm not going to say what I feel this hug is. I want to hear from the folks on. I want to know how this hugs you. If it was a real person, how does it hug you?
All right.
I want to see the
anybody who comes up with that, put that you've got that the hug, and we'll bring you. We'll open up your mic, and we'd like to hear it. I think that's best conveyed on the thing. So if you've got the hug down, let me know, and we'll have you open it up. In the meantime, we'll go back with some of these nice heat and finish. I agree. Finish with this one does linger. Again, this one is kind of sweet on the finish for me. So but it does stick around. It does stay with you. Walnuts and brown sugar. Hug doesn't start to the middle of your chest. Yeah. Blueberry cobbler, some pie crust there as well. Jim says he's got it. So and we got to and Dave too. So we're gonna allow 2 people. Jim, you're first. Jim Fosnot, open up your mic. What type of hug is this, Jim?
This is like hugging grandma after she's been baking all day for Christmas.
Oh, there you go.
The cookies and the pies going, and you got all that scent in the kitchen around grandma, and then she's giving you a big hug because she hasn't seen you in a couple years. You coming over.
Nobody cooks better at Christmas time than grandma. So yeah, you're pretty
Yeah,
happy.
but
when
grandma's
you're having
5 feet tall and has hugs you like a bear though, because
Yeah. All right, we'll go. Well, just for fun, we'll open up to Dave too. Dave, what you come up with, man?
I was going to say it's a very nice, pleasant. It's a real gentle hug, and so it's like the old lady you help walk across the street that gives you just a nice hug, but it feels so good. You feel so good the whole rest of the day
Because you've done a good deed, and
That's
yes,
right.
yeah, just
And it's just a real nice, gentle hug.
Okay,
I love this.
yeah. Tim's saying a side hug from maybe an old high school sweetheart, so that's interesting. All right,
So it's awkward for him. Other people
Yeah.
are feeling great walking away, and he's
Yeah.
like, "No, this feels real weird."
Not him,
I don't know how
not
to feel
him.
about myself.
yeah. Christy's got cacao notes, coffee, chai, spice, nice heat. Jason Souter, pecans, brown sugar, homemade peanut butter, and notes of chocolate. Yeah, this is all good stuff, Beth. Very
Okay,
good.
No,
Yeah. Hmm. You brought us.
absolutely love to hear it.
Yeah, you got us a winner here. So very good stuff. Please stick around till the end, and we'll have Q&A
sure.
with the audience. Okay.
Awesome. Thanks, y'all.
All right. Next up, I want to bring the brothers on, Mike and Matt Blaum from Blaum Brothers Distilling Company. Hey guys, how's it going?
Well, we just came to try the whiskey. We didn't know we were talking.
You didn't know you had to like work, you had to talk and stuff.
Yeah.
That's why we're here. We just want to try the whiskey.
Yeah, it's not a bad time, right? It's fun. So we Justine, who the birthday girl, and I came up
Happy
with this
birthday.
idea. Yeah, happy birthday to Justine. We came up with this idea of doing this, and when we were doing our first one, Justine was like, "You think we should send whiskey to our presenters?" And I was like, I don't know. I mean, that they drink a lot of whiskey, but yeah. So we did, and it ended up being a hit right out of the gate. Yeah, people like coming on; they're hearing the stories, just like everybody else here. So why not? You guys want to try the whiskeys? And
Yeah.
so, yeah.
Absolutely.
I think that was a great idea, except my brother has both of our samples. So I'm sitting
Yeah.
here drinking just bubbly water.
In my defense,
Hopefully he'll share these tomorrow
I
with me.
invited him over here today to do that. So I have them all. So
That's
he's
like a whole mile away.
So yeah, whole
One whole mile.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit. What were you guys doing independently before you started the distillery? So what was your life like? What were you working and doing before you decided to get into distilling? Because that's interesting to me.
Quite a bit different.
Okay.
It would be cool if we had some story about our great grandfather leaving some recipe to us and
Right.
whatever. We don't.
No.
Matt was running nuclear pharmacies, radioactive pharmaceutical
Okay.
manufacturing in the Chicago area, and I was working for the National Security Agency, both on the East Coast and overseas. So
Okay.
I
Normal.
had more of like a business
Yeah.
marketing background, sales. I have more of a technical background, and we always wanted to open a business together, and just with our different backgrounds, just couldn't figure it out. But this is one of the areas we both have in common.
You had the overlap here with the drinking
Yeah.
thing. And but
Yeah.
how did it's a big move, right? It sounds like you guys had pretty good jobs. So it's tough to then say, hey, let's even though we've always talked about doing something together, we're brothers, we'll have this great bond as we get into this thing. But that's a big move when you've got good careers. But again, the big careers end up coming up with all kinds of baggage and headaches, and it ends up probably being a great move. But I'm not saying it's easy though. So tell us how you decided to do this.
Yeah, go ahead, Matt.
We ultimately, we kind of decided on it, talked to our wives about it. Both of them
Right.
were like, "Hey, what?" We were
No.
down in Florida.
Right.
We had our place down in Florida. That's
Yeah.
when Mike decided to do this, and talked to our wives. They were kind of like, not so sure about this, and we ended up just jumping in and moving forward. So it was I don't know. What do you think, Mike? About 18 months after we decided to do it?
Yeah, and that's the weird thing. We were
Yeah.
not disenchanted with our careers. Actually, we both really liked what we were doing.
Yeah.
If there was one thing that was going to tear us away, it was this. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and now we'll fast forward to today. What's it like today working with your brother? So what is there's probably good days and bad maybe, but tell us in general what it's like.
No,
don't
it's
really
great.
have any bad days. Not,
Okay.
not really.
I mean, everyone has bad days, but we don't really have any of those. I mean, we get people in all the time at the distillery that say, you know, I could never work with my brother. I could
Right.
never work with my sister. Like, that's crazy to me. I mean, people act like it's bonkers to work with your sibling. And, you know, growing up, it was just the two of us. So we have always been very close. And it's worked out well in the sense that we kind of, I mean, you can look at look at all his hair. Look at all this hair. You know, we have a nice yin yang thing going. So we both have kind of our different specialties. We have our own swim lanes. Now we kind of do each other, you know, into those lanes periodically, but for the most part, we both have our different things, and we both, you know, it kind of works out well that we both have our different avenues, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not competing with each other for, you know, creative control over this or that. We just kind of it's like a Venn diagram. We come together on the important things, and otherwise we just kind of trust each other to do the right
Okay.
thing.
Tell us, and again, I know it's a small business. You end up doing everything at one point or another. But you know, what are the in general the roles that you guys are doing that allows you to keep kind of in your own swim lane, as you were saying?
I mean, when we first opened the distillery, both of us and our wives were bartending, you know, just
Right.
making it work.
7
We
days
have-
a week.
We only had vodka at that time, you know, right? You know, the old age saying for distillers is vodka keeps the lights on.
Right.
And, you know, so we started off, you know, definitely doing it. All four of us bartended. We ran the retail shop, all that.
Kids
quick-
grew up in the back room.
Yep. Kids were in the back room doing their homework, watching movies. And we ultimately ended up, you know, I'd say within a year of that, we ended up having to hire people and grow and move along. But yeah, it was a lot of work, but for us to start it off on our own before I hear the train whistle at Mike's house.
Yeah.
I hear it through mine now. But we ultimately ended up having to do quite a bit of it on our own before we were able to hire people. And now I don't know, we've got a handful of people now, but
Yeah. How did you guys learn the business? And again, sounds like based on your jobs, you're smart guys, so I get that. But you know, how do you learn it? Do you turn to the internet? Do you go apprentice at some open distilleries? Do you take classes at a place like Moonshine University? What were you guys doing?
It's a bit of an all source approach. We decided early on, you know, we'd reach out to people. We never really worked with any consultants, but you know, we did take some classes, lots of research. I was living overseas when we decided to do this, so I got to work at a Springbank whiskey distillery for a week, which was really kind of cool. Yeah, I see there's a fan there.
There's a fan.
Best Scotch whiskey there is, in my opinion. But really, we just, it's an all source approach. I mean, we're still actively reading research papers from the 1930s and 40s. There's just so much information out there. So we're still constantly learning, but you know, the longer we've been open, we make more friends in the industry, and you just start reaching out and you get to learn more, you get to teach people things. And it's just a constant, you know, constant
give and take.
Yeah. Ultimately.
Yeah. Last question before we start talking about the whiskey, drinking some whiskey. What's it like visiting your place? So give us a little idea about the experience.
So for those who don't know where we are, we're in a little town. We're in a town, Galena, Illinois, is in the northwest corner of Illinois. So we're like 15 minutes from Iowa, 10 minutes from Wisconsin, just up in the corner. We're in a town of 3,200 people, which is small, very small, 3,200 people. Yet we have, I don't know, 35 restaurants in town.
Really?
mean,
Yeah.
but it's a small town.
It's a little ski resort is there or something,
Yeah,
right?
it-
Yeah, my buddies used to go skiing
Skiing and
they-
golfing, yeah.
yeah.
We've got skiing, we've got a ski hill, we've got a golf resort, 3,200 people, but we bring in about 1.5 million people per year.
Okay, yeah, that's
So
big.
a lot of people from Chicago.
Yeah.
Visiting our place, we're in this little town that brings a lot of people in. So it's a tourism heavy city. And, I guess after a year of opening up, we became the #1 tourist attraction on TripAdvisor in Galena, which, it's a big deal in Galena.
Heck yeah, it is.
Not a giant deal outside of Galena, but it's fun. We're having a good time. We're throwing a lot of people through and doing tours. We do tours 7 days a week. We have a big tasting room where we do cocktails and things like that. So it's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, tell us about the whiskey. We got a 100 proof bourbon we're going to be drinking. Tell us what we need to know about this one.
Michael?
Ultimately, it's terroir is important to us. We know we could probably find different grains at different prices from around the country and the world, but we do like the concept of even though it seems cliche, there is some importance to it of local grains. We wanted something very flavorful, and we kind of tested out the distillate after so long, and 100 proof. You'll notice it's 100 proof. That's our bottling proof for all of our flagship whiskeys, and we just think it's at the best kind of balance at that point, both neat and also in cocktails. The bourbon you have is 72% corn, 23% rye. We're both fans of kind of a high rye content.
Okay. Yeah.
And the rest malted barley. So currently all of the grain other than the malted barley is from within. It's actually from a single farm. We have a single farmer who grows it for us just about an hour away out toward Rockford. Otherwise, all 53-gallon barrels.
That's where the
you're
Ewolds
tasting
live,
is representative of the what you're drinking representative of the current makeup of the blend. It's mostly 5-year-old barrels, but there's maybe 1 or 2 4-year-olds and a couple 6-year-olds thrown in there. So
Okay.
we don't have an age statement, which is a de facto 4-year age statement, but you're mostly tasting 5-year-old stuff in there.
Gotcha.
Now,
Starting to get
for the tasting notes, if we could, I would actually like to have somebody volunteer to give their tasting notes as opposed to us, because I don't know, we could come up with something, and I have before, but
oh yeah, well,
like to hear
that's what we do.
I-
So, yeah, that's
Mike,
what
I don't think we should look for a volunteer. I think you should pick one randomly.
just pick
Pick one.
somebody.
Okay, we'll do that. I got a couple nosing notes here: cinnamon rolls, confectionery
Yeah, go
sugar, orange rind, and then caramel, baking spices. Then we've got dark chocolate, old leather, full-bodied nose for sure. Soft and easy, welcoming like vanilla pudding or banana cream pie. A lot of cinnamon, pine nuts, a sweet corn, malted cereal, green tobacco.
Actually, those are pretty good. I mean, funny enough,
Walnuts,
those are
hazelnut, walnuts, and
fairly in
hazelnuts.
line with some of the official ones that we have. Tobacco and
Yeah.
leather, and yeah.
All right, now the old fickle finger of fate lands on Melanie Robinson to give us some tasting notes here. So you guys want them? She's gonna provide them for us. Melanie's pretty good at this
Awesome.
stuff.
Let's
Let's see what she comes up with. Melanie,
yeah.
you're the first one providing tasting notes. What do you got?
Okay. I did send the information in the chat. That was me that put that in with the caramel and the baking spice and the tobacco, a little bit of dark chocolate on the finish. Really full bodied.
Yeah.
A nice mouthfeel, not too dry.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mhm.
medium hug, medium finish. It's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, definitely get that. You catch that rye spice at the end for sure.
Mhm.
Kind of sticks around in the middle of your palate, and you feel that warm hug. Kind of you feel it going all the way down. So yeah, that's nice.
Good stuff.
Very good.
I like it.
Yeah, she's good. Jason's good at these two. We'll have Jason. We'll do one more live one. We'll toss it to Jason. We'll do one female, one male. Jason, we'll have you
Do it.
represent and do some live tasting notes.
I think I think it's IHOP, or it's one of the brands that does a makes a pancake that's like chopped up nuts and ancient grains
Mhm.
that has this kind of just toasty roasted, but then you put the syrup on it, so you get all of a sudden you get the sweet, and that's the kind of the combination of the things I'm getting. It's chopped up nuts, maple sweet, and then just there's just kind of these notes of fruit that just kind of pop in and out. That a little bit of cherry, a little bit of apple.
Yeah. Well, how do you think they did, Mike? Were they go all right?
Yeah, I'm impressed.
That's good. That's good.
I mean, it's very objective, but
Sure.
there's nothing that I heard or read that was off the wall.
Or you would yell wrong.
Yeah, well,
That's not
there's
there.
no wrong, but
Right.
I've heard some weird
That's
things
that's
before,
the humor of it, right? There is no
Yeah,
wrong.
yeah.
You can't be wrong when you're talking about tasting notes.
Right.
So we're getting some stuff coming in here. Steve says Jason nailed it. Oh, so there you go. Cherry and old leather from Christy. Got some coffee notes here. Pear on the tail end and lingering on the palate. So the Ewalds. Yeah. What else you guys got? Yeah. We got to have Beth ready to give us the hug analysis in just a second here. She's gonna we'll cue her up. We got caramel, baking spices, fig jam, and toast. And congrats on the finish. Yeah, it's really nice. That rye, high rye kicks in for sure.
Yeah.
All right. I'd like to turn it over to our very own Beth Burrows, who's going to give you an analysis here that you may want to use on your website that's going to describe the hug you get with us. All right.
I was typing it in because I didn't know.
Oh no, we're going to bring you alive.
Like, in the best way.
spoken. Yeah, it's best spoken. So yeah.
So I'm gonna say I don't feel as much of a hug as it is a kiss. This is like a kiss on the couch when you're like hanging out watching a nice movie, and it like sneaks up on you, but like in the best way.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, that's even kind of what Tim said. He said this was a sneak behind you hug. So yeah, cross a boundary or two. So yeah, there you go.
But like,
all right.
There's consent. It's fine.
Yeah, there's consent. So that's good. It's okay.
It's a slightly awkward hug.
Yeah, slightly awkward, but yeah, that's all right. Well, Mike and Matt, thank you guys, and please stick around for the Q&A session. Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
sure.
One last one I'll throw at you, like chewing an old baseball glove after you've eaten the maple bun candy. So there you go. How about that? Now that's getting some detail. That's wrong though. No, I'm kidding, Murphy. You can't be wrong. You can't be wrong. So you're fine. All right. Last but not least, Demetrius Kane from Nobleton's Distilling House. Demetrius, how you doing, man?
Good. I almost left myself on mute there for a second. There was a brief moment where I panicked.
That's okay. You're good. You're with us, so that's good. So same thing, if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about what you were doing work-wise before you got into what you're doing now.
Yeah, so I kind of come from a background of botany and business finance. I come from an education of botany and biochemistry. Never used it in like the professional sense, but got into finance and did that for a number of years and just didn't like it really. I grew up on a big farm in Northern Oregon. And so coming out here to the Midwest, I started buying farms again, and I really enjoy being out on the land, and I just hated working in an office. And so it was kind of like through that journey of starting my own farms and working through there, it kind of brought me back to kind of the roots of distilling. My family doesn't really, I wouldn't say we have like a long history of, we were just like weird random moonshiners. There's no secret recipe that was handed down or anything like that. We have a family yeast that like we just used to brew beer.
Yeah.
But it wasn't really anything that was like, it wasn't like we were like well known in our counties or anything. I think that there might have been a few blind relatives we had, but beyond that, it just was kind of, pretty standard. A lot of people have distilling relatives from previous generations. So,
right. And, again, we're going to focus most of our talk on the whiskey, but you do have this great family history in sugarcane, and that leads to you being so interested in rum. So tell us a little bit about, your family and what they do and why that ended up playing a role in getting started with rum, and why you still are making rum, and why that's, so important to you and some of the things that you're doing in rum.
Yeah. So one of the biggest, so my family, we purchased our sugarcane farm down in Louisiana in 1905. So it was kind of a failing sugarcane farm. We were Scotch Irish immigrants, and we kind of came into the country around that time. And the previous trades we didn't really know how to continue using that here in the States. So purchasing a sugarcane farm sounded like a good idea then. It was a horrible idea for like 90 years. Like the family like almost lost the company multiple times. And in the 1990s, kind of like coffee took off. So there's some specific chain companies that use raw sugar cane that's from heirloom. It's kind of in brown packets. And that kind of became a big thing. And so our family ended up kind of surviving by that. So I grew up around sugarcane a lot. There's just a fascination, you know, it's kind of like after harvest, you would press a lot of it down and you would make sugarcane juice rum. And then I went to college and I kind of like learned that the rum that I grew up enjoying was nothing like the rum that's on the market. So the rum that's on the market's heavily colored, heavily flavored, heavily sweetened.
Yep.
And it's proofed technically like everybody thinks of Captain Morgan. Captain Morgan is actually not rum. It's if you look on the bottle, it says a rum flavored liqueur because it's 35% alcohol. So for anybody that's kind of like that like loves the legal technical definition, if you look at the TPB, it says rum must be 40% alcohol or 80 proof, and it's only 35% alcohol.
Yeah. That's crazy, right? Because if you asked 100 people, what's the most popular brand of rum? How many of them would say Captain Morgan? A lot of them. Yeah.
Yeah, most would. And so that was kind of like where my like segue into it became. So I had learned how to make rum in the past. And then my family kind of has this, I would say it's like a Scandinavian farm beer. It's like a barley wine.
Yeah.
That it's kind of like, it's like a rite of passage. You learn how to brew. So my grandfather taught me how to brew the beer. None of my siblings really were that interested in it. So it just was, so I started brewing a lot of beer, and it was kind of like the Christmas present. I would, you know, make a whole bunch of bottles and give it out at Christmas. And it wasn't, I think in my junior year in college, I was like, this is what I want to do. I just didn't know how to do it.
Right.
So it took me, you know, about 5 more years to figure out how to begin this process. So,
yeah. So tell us a little bit about how we get to again, you know, releasing a whiskey, you know, which is almost your 5th year in business. So tell us a little bit about, you know, how you even managed to do that. I guess the rum thing worked out really well, where you were able to hold on to some whiskey until it was ready to release, right?
Yeah, so we kind of had an interesting, so a lot of people, you know, it's starting the distillery and you need to have a source of income right away,
right,
in order to pay for barrels to go up. And we definitely needed that. So that was where like the rum came in partially. But then the other thing is, since we own our own farms, early on, all of the grain came from my farms. So the benefit of that is grain goes bad over time. And so we were able to, when the farms were doing really well, we'd be able to take that grain and reduce our profitability by diversifying it into whiskey barrels and prolonging the return on that asset. So early on, it was a way for us to reduce profits on one business front and prolong those returns like into the future.
Yeah.
So that was kind of like how it was a little, you know, financial.
This is the guy with the financial background. Yeah, running a distillery. Okay.
That's how we did it. And I wouldn't say that it was like, you know, I don't know if it's the right way or the best way or a good way at all. It just worked for us.
Right.
And so that was kind of like how we started with getting into putting up the whiskey. And then the other thing was we completely bootstrapped the entire thing. You know, our original distillery was it was a 375 square foot shed on our farm because it was not really the focus of, you know, we have profitable farms. So it was more of, my wife had no idea that I was starting it. And it was more, she was like, oh yeah, that's a cool idea, you know, someday. And to me, that was done. So I started building my own stills and shoved them in a little tiny shed, got approval. And I think it wasn't until probably about the 10th or 12th barrel that went up, because I ended up like taking over a cottage we had, and I had barrels in there, and my wife didn't know that. She ended up like going in to like clean up the like small little farmhouse, and there's barrels all over the floor, and then that's where questions started. So
so that you're busted, but yeah, it's okay. It's worked out. You're fine.
Yeah.
Now you're good. Now you're good. You got the bigger distillery. You got a lot of cool things going on right now. So
yeah.
very cool. Yeah. So, you're making the whiskey, and how do you know when it's ready? This is also really an important thing. How do you know? You've had it sitting around for, 4 years now, you've made it. You want to make sure it's right. Is that a big thing? Does that cause you stress and things like that? Or is it something that you're just like, nope, I know that this is ready to go? Or how do you get to that point?
Well, so, I would say, on this call, there are probably far more experienced people than I am on, I can look at it from a chemical standpoint. I can look at it from like, the esterification during fermentation, the way that we're separating those during distillation.
Right.
And, you can talk about like the chemical changes that occur in the barrel, but in my opinion, we did like all the right things going into barrel. And for like 2 years, I hated it. And I actually thought we were going to end up selling the whiskey, transferring bond and letting somebody else put a label on it. Because I thought I'd made a mistake. So, just in all openness and humbleness, because we decided to do a 4-grain whiskey. So our whiskey, it's 51% malted corn. Nobody malts corn. I was unaware of that.
Right.
And so I just malted it because I was looking at the diametastic power, so the DP, for fermentation. And I was like, I don't want to use enzymes. So I didn't want the enzyme aspect of it. So I malted the corn on my grain room floor. And that was like my first experience of malting. And so we did that, and it's 22% rye, which we didn't malt the rye because rye has natural enzymes in it that helps with fermentation. Malted the wheat, did another 22% wheat, and then 5% malted barley. And so in my mind, we had done everything right. So going into it, it had a really nice flavor going into barrel. And about a year in, it was just too oaky. And I was worried, we'd never, with rum, you never do it in brand new barrels. So rum, for the most part, you're putting into used whiskey casks. So you don't have that kind of like heavy oak that then works its way out over years. So that was kind of like me learning that when you put it into a brand new cask, it gets really oaky quickly and then dissipates over time. And then it was that research on that back end of, so at about year 1, I thought it was ruined. And we put up a lot of barrels. So it was a huge investment. And to this day, like my wife harasses me about it. She's always, every time I like second guess, she's like, well, remember you almost dumped 200 barrels. And I'm like, well, I would have sold.
Oh my gogosh, that would have been tragic. Yeah.
So then it was that like year 2. So I held on to him kind of against my better my judgment at the time, but it was just kind of a gut feeling like, you got to give it time. So at about year 2, we started noticing there was a couple barrels that were in like hotter sections of the barn, the rick house.
Yeah.
And those started to have like a really, really interesting flavor change. And so that was where I was like, okay, maybe we're onto something. Let's let it set. And so going into year 3, so this is, so everybody heard 51% malted corn. This is not a bourbon though. It doesn't say that on there. It's definitely not a bourbon. That's because we use toasted casks, not charred.
Yeah.
So we're very proud that it's not a bourbon. It's not that we don't love bourbon. I absolutely love bourbon. But we're trying to create a new kind of category. So our distillery sits in the Ozark Highlands, and the Ozark Highlands is a very unique geographical and geological location where we have dolomite limestone. So we have a really, really incredibly hard water, like very limestone rich calcium. And we also, we don't filter. So we use non-filtered water. So it comes straight out of a deep well.
Yeah.
Straight into fermentation tanks, straight into the mash cooker and then fermentation tank. So we don't ever filter anything out. We just hit it with UV. And we can only do that because we have really good water. if we were in, other locations or in lowlands, sometimes you'd have to filter. But yeah, so about year 2 going into year 3, we realized there were some really good characteristics of it. We decided to do a double barrel finish. So this is a 3-barrel whiskey. What we did is we took 2 barrels of the same whiskey, aged the same amount of time, and we broke them into 2 different kinds of barrels. And so we make 3 kinds of whiskey, 2 of which are not on the market yet. And we started swapping our whiskeys back and forth. So we took this one, which is our flagship, and we put it into the other whiskeys. One is a wheat, one is a rye. And so we finished it that way. And then we blended those 2 barrels back together. So it's all minimum. This is minimum 4 years old, but this batch, barrel number 1, is 4.5 years. This was our very first barrel to ever put up. And yeah. Oh, and then the other thing, like uniqueness, just to kind of point out, we do a single pass distillation. We built an Armagnac still. So it's an Armagnac Armagnac still, or a Alembic Armagnaca still. And so it's a single pass. There's no cuts. It cuts all of it in the column. And then when it goes straight into the barrel, and then we aerate the barrel at year 1, year 3, and then prior to where we open up the bung and actually let it air, open to air for about 3 weeks. So we lose a little bit more, but it's a unique process for us.
Yeah, you're getting some good notes here on the nose. Peach, almost rum-like. Again, sometimes we can get inside somebody's head. I start thinking the rum stuff for sure. Tim Swyatt, mountain pine, lemon zest, crisp honeysuckle. Knowing you're a botanist by passion, this has a lot of crisp gin notes without the juniper. Yeah, that's good. Wonderful banana notes, a little pine too from Adina. And then someone wants to know about yeast. What are you using yeast-wise?
Yeah, so this is our family yeast. So it is technically, so we've had it analyzed with the lab. We do all of our in-house breeding of yeast. It is a Kveik yeast. So anybody that knows anything about like the different types of yeast, it's a Scandinavian based yeast. We don't know at how old it is. It's been just passed down. I've got a yeast ring. So anybody that does anything with like Scandinavian brewing, it's a ring of intertwining wood, like they're kind of like flat little discs that look kind of like an L, and they interlock between each other and they go around. And up until us starting the distillery, that just hung in the shed. And then we would just dip it into the beer tank and then pull it back out, hang it on the shed. Now that we've started the distillery, we keep a little better track of it. So we actually have samples where we, pull them and freeze them and document, changes within the yeast over time. But yeah.
Very cool. Well, let's talk on taste. Last one of the night. So let's give a cheers here, gang. Last pour cheers, and let's talk about what we're getting on the notes here. Oh yeah, brother. I did not cheat. So I wait to do these on the event, and man, this is good, man. This is really pleasant, and it's a little spicy. Finish is just awesome. Definitely hangs out. It really, really good, man.
So it's non-chill filtered. So we don't chill filter. We also do just like a very light.
Yeah, the mouth feels great, man. It's
spot on, brother. That's why it's 100 proof. Because I don't want a cloudy whiskey. If you ever look at any of our rums, everything we do is 100 proof because I just like oil. It's like the oil left suspended. Somebody asked, I saw over in the log, they said open top fermentation. Yeah, we do primary fermentation and open top fermenters. And then so one thing too that I will point out, we do kind of a weird, so if anybody that ever like comes out to Marthasville, we're in a really tiny town. We don't even have a stoplight. But we sat in the middle of an 85-acre apple orchard because we also make apple brandy, which isn't on the market yet. But we do long fermentation. So this whiskey is fermented for 9 weeks, and then we lager it. But it sets in a cooler that has our brandy, which we ferment for 18 months. So our brandy, we ferment all the way into apple wine. And so some of those fruit notes that people pick up on it is because we do have commingling of yeast that does occur. And that's kind of like, we're a very terroir focused distillery. So it's kind of like on purpose that we try to do that.
Yeah. Honey pear, great full mouthfeel, pepper notes, spice on the finish, great flavor, spice is comforting. So yum, pleasant, clean start, then jumps to mid palate, sweet pit fruits, rich, sweet molasses, and a little pepper. Very nice roller coaster ride. I agree. It is a roller coaster ride. Lemon cooler cookies and caraway from our good friend Lenny from Deerhammer Distilling. So yeah, Lenny's on with us tonight. A bit of a celebrity. Lenny, Dimitri, you can put the guy to the test because Dimitri is a former, college football player, big guy. And Lenny claims he, in like a cage match situation, he could beat any distiller. This is his claim to fame. So
they have to travel to Buena Vista, Colorado.
He wants the home field advantage for sure. So yeah, but yeah.
I will give it to you hands down. You can.
I don't know, man. What are you like?
to the
6'5",
bottle
6'6", Dimitri? You're a big guy.
I am 6'5".
Okay.
I am
I'm
6'5",
5'6".
but yeah,
Lenny's 5'6", so hey,
it'll be a
go
battle
for the leg sweep.
royale.
We'll go for the leg sweep. Yeah. So yeah, good stuff there.
So yeah,
age statement. What is this? What's the age on this? And what size barrels are you aging this?
we 53-gallon barrels.
Okay, good deal.
So we only use Missouri white oak. We're in Missouri. That's part of making an Ozark Highland whiskey. We're actually in the process of getting the legislation, like we're working on state legislation. So on Monday, this upcoming Monday, we're actually going to be defending that in Jeff City. So we use Ozark Highland water, and then we use Ozark Highland barrels. And so they're Missouri white oak. They, up until this year, were made in Missouri, but we actually use Adirondack cooperage in upstate New York now. We actually ship the barrels, the wood from my farms to them to make them.
So cool. That's cool.
And it was kind of a desperate, we kind of got cut from our local cooperages because we don't use enough barrels. And so
Isn't it something? You got so many cooperages around you. And,
we get all of them. So we just switched cooperages, which is kind of cool because when you go with a smaller cooperage, they actually hand build all of it. We actually went out to this about 2 weeks ago and actually got to build some of our barrels, which was really awesome. An awesome experience. I'm horrible at that, so I'm never going into that business.
That's not going to be your new career. No.
No.
Honey and mold, fruits, deep rich spice, Armagnac. Mr. Bill likes them all. As a matter of fact, he likes all of them. So we don't allow Mr. Bill to come on live on these events anymore. We did it one time and he burned me. Said, this is just, it's okay. Someone might like it. He says that in the middle of one of these events. And I died, but then I got to finish. Mr. Bill's able to then log off, go back on mute, but I got to stay there and talk to the people. So yeah, we don't allow him to come on live anymore, but he likes them all. So that's good. So yeah, that's his highest rating. If he says he likes it, that's like winning a double gold in San Francisco. Demetrius needs to come on the Bourbon Show. Yeah. We need to get you on there, buddy, for sure. We're doing a lot of stuff with him. We're going to do some bourbon behind the scenes stuff. He's been a good friend of mine for a long time. We just haven't been quite working together because he, is more of a focus on rum, but now that he's in the whiskey game, we're going to do some stuff where we're going to go out to his distillery. Obviously he's a guy who can teach you a lot. He's very scientific focused and of course has the ability to then convey it into words where people like me that are not as smart as he is can understand it, which is nice. I like people like that. So not all people who are really smart have the ability to do that. So that's a cool thing. So
I don't know that I'm smart. It's just, we stumble through all of this.
Yeah, fair enough. All right. Well, there you go. That is our 4 presenters. Dimitri, thank you, my friend. Appreciate you being part of this. And now we just got about 12 minutes left, and we do like to leave a little time at the end for our audience. So if you have a question, you can open up your mic. Mike Blaum, you can go first. You got something you'd like to say?
Yeah. Are you actually sponsored by The Price is Right? I'd like to know about that.
Oh, no, we used to do that. That's parody under the U.S. rules of parody. We are allowed to use that. We used to do a game show
Yeah.
on
Wants to
on
try
the
the
Bourbon
rum
Daily.
and he won't say.
Bourbon Price is Right, called the Bourbon Price is Right. So yes.
You could have just said yes, and I would have been fine with that.
Oh,
too.
okay. Okay.
Just- yeah, absolutely. They
I thought you were
sponsor us.
maybe yeah. I got to turn me in or something. But yeah, we just have a little fun with that. So yeah, we haven't done it in a while. We need to though. So it used to be fun to come on and guess and not go over. So yeah, very cool stuff. Yeah, we did do the Price is Right one time with Stephen Fonte playing the role of Roddy. Come on down. So that was kind of cool. What other questions do we have?
So Demetrius, I live about 45 minutes from you, and I didn't realize you're out there. So Heidi's on the ABV Network a lot, podcasting as well. My wife, we love to go tour distillery. So do you do tours out there, and when do you do them?
Yeah, so we do tours Friday afternoon and Saturday afternoon. So we're open 4 to 8 on Fridays, and then noon to 6 on Saturdays. But primarily for like tours, I typically say try to make it out on Friday or shoot me an email, because I have my assistant distiller. He's typically here on Saturdays, and so if you'd like to come out and like have a really in-depth tour, I'm always available. And also, it's like we're here all week long. So if you set it up, if you have a day off or something like that works different than those hours, we're always here working. And right now we have our entire still is spread out. Like I'm on this side. So if you come in the next, like we're to come this week, my still is completely ripped apart and I have welders all over the place. Because
it wouldn't be in the next couple of weeks, but after that, I'd love to come out there and see it.
Yeah.
And Christy, Heidi and I just came out to your place a week or so ago, and we're on a Sunday. So you weren't there, but what days can we catch you there? Because you're half hour.
Oh, good Lord, I live here.
Not on Sundays, you didn't.
Oh.
That was because I was prepping
For the podcast? For the being on the Bourbon Daily?
Yes.
You're the only person who's ever prepared for that show. They
didn't
fire
know
the
what to
staff and
expect.
just bring you. So,
Wait, that's not
I
true.
mean,
we drove
ordinarily,
out there just so
I'd
Heidi
be
could
in ripped up
sure.
sweatpants with a remote in my hand, being like, "Oh, I'll answer questions," but I didn't know what to expect.
Right.
So I was like, "All right." I'd already had like kind of a shit week. I'm
Right.
sorry, but I mean it was just very, very busy, and me becoming owner, there are so many different, I go from one room to the next, to the next, to the next. I am not a multitasker. I don't think there's a term that has actually been created to describe myself.
just keeping your head above water, just barely. That's how I usually
I do
am.
it.
Well, Glenda did you proud. She did good. And Steve, you need to get like some ABV event. We need to bring that trailer they have.
You guys, whenever you want it, I will crack the whip.
All
I
right,
will drive
we'll get
that thing out there.
We'll get you on that. That's good. We have a request. I forgot. We wanted to have Beth do a hug analysis. So Demetrius actually specifically asked for this. He's got a pen in hand. He's ready to write down. What do you got here, Beth?
Just make sure that you put me as no, I'm just kidding. No, I think
I'm after you. She will.
Only quoted. No, this may be power suggestion, but for me, it is summer turning into fall outside in an orchard before you go inside and have some like warm apple pie, but like with the crumbles on top. The appropriate way to eat apple pie, right? You have to have like Dutch apple pie. That's what it is. But it's like if you were out there and you'd been like just hanging out outside, you were a little sweaty, but it's just turned kind of like chill, and you're wearing somebody else's sweatshirt, and then they give you a hug.
Hey.
If you leave the part of wearing someone else's sweatshirt out of there, it's wrong. It's just not. It doesn't describe.
No, you're not wearing yours. It's an ill-fitting sweatshirt, but in the best way possible.
There you go.
So what I was doing was looking through pictures, because when we initiated the whole Missouri
to see if Demetrius was there. Yeah, I'm sure he was.
Beer trail.
You can't forget him though with that beard, right?
Huh?
You can't forget Demetrius with the beard, right? If
No,
you
I
met
had
him
a
before, it
picture
seems
of
like you
him,
remember him.
and
Yeah.
I was going to show it.
Okay. All right.
And it was actually really because all I kept thinking was, "This is a really good beard."
Yeah. Do you
But-
feel like if we had an app that blended two people, if we put Mike and Matt Blaum into that app, Demetrius would come out of that thing? It kind of does look like a combination of the two of them. I don't know.
I mean,
Look. Is that, I mean, I think so.
That's
think-
fair.
Yeah, I think it's a combination. There you go.
Brother.
would you guys be all
Long lost
accepting
brother.
if I grew one? I mean,
Yeah.
I'm a female. I mean,
All
What else do you guys
Let it
want to
fly.
know from our distillers here? Because again, we got just about 6 minutes, so we'll hang
Right.
out and talk afterwards. But I want to make sure if they got to go, we respect their time. Anybody else? Questions?
I got
what-
quick. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Terry.
Quick question for Dimitri. I mean, I went to your website while we were learning about it, and it seems like your Planters whiskey is a relatively new product, and you guys
That's number
used
one.
to-
Yeah.
used to be really heavy into rum. What made you go into whiskey? I think you guys are knocking it out of the park for something that's so new.
Yeah, thank you. So we went into whiskey knowing we were going to do it. We just knew that whiskey needs more time in barrel.
He did it right. Is
And-
what he did. Yeah.
And so when we started, we distilled whiskey first and then rum second. But rum was what we've heavily marketed since 2019, launching the distillery public.
Mhm.
And so it was kind of like rum was carrying us. It's funny, we've kind of done things backwards. We're just about to launch our vodka. So everybody else is like, you typically do vodka to like carry the business. And we're like, hey, we should do vodka because we're making gin, which needs vodka. So we did gin and vodka, like just very recently as well. So we haven't fully marketed the whiskey as well as we should on our webpage yet. That's because we only launched it 3 weeks ago. So
Yeah,
you guys, this is all barrel one. So the
Yeah.
barrel you guys
That's
are
amazing.
We literally had to wait around a little bit. Justine, of course, she has to work with the deadline because she's got to get it out to you guys across the country. And we were literally waiting for that to get done, to get bottled. And,
Sorry about that.
supply chain stuff is always a joy these days. So, yeah. Justine's yelling at me. So, yeah, well, but we got it done somehow, some way. It happened. So,
Don't listen to anything that he says.
look, you should.
Demetrius, this was definitely worth waiting for. I think you've created a whole new category of whiskey. It's delicious. We have some of the Legion. So for the other guys, where are your products available? Are they only in Missouri, or are they available other places?
So I'll start with the Blaum brothers. You guys, obviously you're in Illinois, but where else are you available? And can you get it online?
Illinois, Colorado, Kentucky, Tennessee, Georgia, Wisconsin, sealbox.com. You can get it
Okay.
online. Yep.
That's good. Yeah, because they ship to pretty much everywhere, I believe. So,
Yep.
Yeah. Chrissy, what about you? Where can we get your stuff at?
we are located,
So just
A
in St.
lot of-
Louis area, kind of greater St. Louis, or
yes, as of right
That's
now.
nice. Based on their size, that's what I would.
And
figure.
I like to keep it that way. Distillery, yes. I would say we're probably in about 80 at this point.
Stores.
liquor Stores.
Stores.
Mhm.
Yeah. So there you go.
As for bars and restaurants, I really don't know the count, but
No online retail yet.
Hmm.
No online retail yet.
Oh, yeah, I will.
Online retailers sell your stuff. Okay. I'm gonna guess no. All right. We'll say no. Demetrius, how about you? Where can we find your stuff at?
So we're Missouri and Kansas right now, like in physical locations. We are sold online. So we have a partnership. So if you go through our website, you can actually kind of direct link it through us. But it comes from one of our partners. There's only about 5 states we can't ship to through that partnership.
Nice.
And also, if you go to any store in any state and you start requesting it, that's another way that we can get there. So
Yeah.
anybody wants it anywhere, just start
Yeah.
bugging stores and call me, and I'll start bugging them too.
Now that you've done the waiting game and you've waited this out, you've laid down enough whiskey that you should be able to really start kind of expanding operations and moving on out there, right?
Yeah. we do so. Our main still, we're building 3 more stills right now, but our main still, she does about 3,000 liters a day of mash, and so she runs through about 3,000 liters, and so we put up quite a few barrels a week, and yeah, and then we just have kind of kept rolling with it. We've got a lot of barrels up right now.
Yeah. Any last question? Does anyone have?
Yeah, for Mike and Matt, the biggest question with brothers working together, who would take who in a fight?
Oh, okay. And the winner moves on to face Lenny.
Go there. Oh, you want to go there, huh?
Yeah.
Well, I'm 2.5 years older. I don't know.
I'm
Mike's
2.5 times his weight. So all I have to do is jump and grab on, and he just topples over.
Yeah, we haven't gotten there yet, but we've had a couple times Mike get close, but we haven't gotten there yet.
All right.
All right.
The winner takes Lenny.
Fair enough. Yeah. Lenny's waiting in the wings, of course. So
Matt, we had a stare down a while back. It was like 10 years ago at ADI Denver. It wasn't really a stare down. We were actually drinking together, but it was a while back.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? Way
long
back then.
I got a good memory.
Yes.
There you go.
Love it. Love
All
it.
right.
I'm just going to assume that I'm so intimidating that nobody wants to take me on in a fight.
Well, maybe the hat's a secret weapon, like Odd Job in the James Bond.
No.
Often, yeah.
I love that you went there, and in my mind, I went to Mortal Kombat, and I was.
There you go. All right, well, that's going to wrap this thing up. Let's give a round of applause to our distillery representative tonight. We got Chrissy Svetz, Beth Burrows, Mike and Matt Blaum, and finally Demetrius Cain. Thank you so much, gang. We really appreciate it. Excellent job. Great hearing your stories. The whiskey was fantastic tonight. We had 4 great offerings, so much fun. So with that, we're officially say goodbye here. We'll turn off the recorder. I'm going to stick around. Our distillers, if you got to run, we understand. We'll just stick around a little bit and chat though. So if you want to do that, you're certainly welcome to do it. So thanks so much, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good night.